Thank you all. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dr. Dotres, for making the trip from Miami. Before we delve into schools and learning communities, let's set the stage a little bit about what I think everyone in this room knows, what every well-being discussion over the last few years has talked about, which is this increasing youth mental health crisis in the developed world in particular, in the United States and the United Kingdom for sure. I'm so glad Jan is here for this part of the conversation. 2 years ago, the World Happiness Report, of course, looked at these generational differences in well-being and concluded, surprisingly, in many developed countries, young people were experiencing higher levels of mental health issues, lower well-being. Now, I think over the last few years, there's been a lot of hypotheses about why that's the case. Why are young people experiencing worse mental health? The theories are anything from COVID lockdowns to declining social connections because of online activity, potentially pernicious effects of social media. Gallup has a new book coming out next year. This is the first time I think we're telling anyone about this, about the role of parenting quality and youth mental health. So how the way your parents parent you, how does that affect your long-term mental health outcomes? That being said, I think this sort of underexplored area of schools and the way school environments, teaching, leadership, support, and accountability at the district level is a really important part of the equation. There's so many theories about why young people have declining mental health, but not a lot of tangible solutions that actually seem to move the needle. So I'm really excited to start this conversation. So, Dr. Dotres, let me start with you. Tell us a little bit about Miami County Schools' sort of journey into well-being. Why did you start working with WOHASU and becoming the first certified WOHASU school district in promoting well-being? Why did you start there? What were you observing about the mental health of your students? And what led you to this point?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. It's a multiple dimensional reason for this. We really did a lot of work with mental health. Started really there. Actually amplified the team of mental health specialists that we had in our school district to like 150 of them. We felt that the counselors, every school is assigned a counselor, was really not enough. And the role of the counselor was very particular, specific to certain things. So our state really began to invest or provide opportunities for us to really invest in the mental health approaches and strategies to help our kids. And that was the basis of the next step. If mental health is such a concern, we wanted to create awareness, right? Not the stigma that's associated to it. Then I was a former principal. And as a principal, you really are the leader that provides the conditions that both teachers, students, and employees need in order for schools to have the appropriate culture. In the world of education, there has been, as you know, a panelist before mentioned the word burnout, right? Teachers that are feeling burnt out, turnover, lack of retention of our teachers. But then you have the principals of these schools really feeling the pressure of all of these elements. And so I felt that it was really important for us to first attend to the well-being of our leaders in order for them to set the stage for positive school cultures. And I was really fortunate to meet Karen, because how you introduce an approach in a school district, you have to be able to have some backing. So I just can't say all of a sudden, let's get into well-being. Let's make schools a happier place. No, 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 no. You need a program, a concept, or an approach that is backed by evidence. And that's where we met Karen and then Dr. Brooks from Harvard. And Harvard carries a strong name in terms of research-based practices. So here comes the science of happiness. And that's how we started the approach. But we first started with our school principals. We have over 350 of them. And so within these last 2 years, we've trained or certified, or in the process of certifying, over 150. But what I had to do as an organization, I had to start with myself and my leadership team first. You just can't start anywhere. So, sometimes school districts are seen just as school districts, just providing academic renderings for kids. No, no, no. We are an organization first, and looking at the well-being of the organization became really, really important. And absolutely, after COVID, the effects are still there. Elements of isolation, elements of lack of connectedness. And that is what we've been trying to really work on.
Thank you so much. One follow-up. Tell us a little bit more about what your teachers and leaders are observing about the mental health of the students that they serve. Are they seeing things get worse? What do you think is driving the need to really focus on mental health in schools?
Like I said, before COVID, you really did not speak much about mental health. Kids had their issues, students had concerns. So the lack of connectedness, believe it or not, the year that we come back from COVID, the behavior of even the middle school kids was behavior that we were not used to. If you think that just coming back to school, things would be normal, absolutely not. They behaved in a different way. They interacted in a very different way. And so they were dealing with issues that we did not realize. Our mental health approach kicks in across all schools. And so I believe our school leaders and our teachers are seeing an improvement in the way students try to seek support and assistance. And that has been a big one for them not to stay silent, but rather seek assistance. I think we've done surveys directly with the students, and they are trending in the right direction. We've also implemented mental health champions in every single school, mental health liaisons. And they also have the ear to the ground regarding how the students are doing and what the needs are at each particular school.
Thank you. Karen, from WOHASU's perspective, tell us a little bit about sort of your vision of the role that education systems play in shaping thriving societies, how you think education can really catalyze stronger well-being, and maybe why few in the well-being community has actually worked with schools and why this partnership is really groundbreaking.
Well, it's really, really hard. And I cannot uh, overestimate or oversay how visionary this superintendent is in having said yes to something that should be so common sense. I speak about happiness and well being in many parts around the world, and people come to me feeling like they're bringing such enlightenment, saying, you know where this would be great? And I'm like, oh, where? Kids. And I'm like, really? You don't say. It's so hard. It is so hard because I think we've had a big issue before, especially before COVID, where it's like, but I need them to get into the school, but I need them to get the grades, but they have to go and do, they have, and this is what I was saying earlier, do. So there's very little be. I think that students that go to the different universities like Yale and Harvard and other ones that go and end up in the happiness classes are because they're not happy. They've been doing their entire lives, right? There's been so much pressure, and all of that is with these external metrics that have been passed on by society, by very loving and well-meaning parents who are terrified if the children don't get that job, that position, that thing. And so I think that we have left them behind in like who they are. And this is why I love, Gallup's strengths, right? Because we need to talk about strengths in children. What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? And for some reason, we think that they're just going to say, well, I just want to watch TV all day. And then you have to have that battle. And it's almost like parents are having that conversation internally, because 9 out of 10 times, or even more, maybe if you ask a child, I mean, they want to do things, they want to build, they want to contribute, they want to be part of. And just maybe they don't want to be, fitting a square peg in a round hole. That feels very uncomfortable. And I think that we begin to like alienate them from themselves with very well-meaning initiatives. Now, after COVID, they have acted out. So we have had to pay attention to them, right? And I think that parents are really struggling in knowing what to do with students. And I think that right now in this period of flux, I see opportunity, because it's okay, fine, let's talk about happiness and well-being, because it's like you've tried everything else. And the beautiful thing is that, happier children just perform better. They get better grades. There's less classroom interruptions. The teachers have to spend less time managing students that are misbehaving, etc. But it has been really, really hard, because what I see is that many times we even politicize that. Like, which methodology are you going to use, or which framework? And then it gets very political. So what I love about this approach, beginning with principles, is that we can start to create these climates, right? That then, teachers are going to feel better. And then the students are going to feel better. And of course, we need the student interventions, but we need to have the field and the fertile ground for those seeds to take root, so we can have the garden that we want to have. But it's been really, really challenging, really difficult to get people to talk about student well-being. And I think that that's something that if we come out of this meeting today, just with like thinking about that, like, what do we think society is going to look like if we have a difficult time thinking about and promoting little kids? I'm not even saying college, which is so important too, but even little kids' well-being. There's so much research. There's research on saliva samples of like kindergartners, and how their cortisol level goes up if a teacher's talking to, being angry with a child that's over there, how that's having impact. Now imagine if you have 15 years of that cortisol. What's that going to do to that child's biology? So needless to say, it's been really hard. I think that this is a watershed moment, because it is the third largest school district in the country, because it is a complicated city. And I think that this is going to be something that even from the outreach that we're receiving to bring it to other places, it's beginning to move the needle. So I'm so incredibly grateful to you, Dr. Dotres.
Oh, thank you. Jim earlier this morning talked about this public crisis and confidence in higher education. And I think it goes without saying, there's also a crisis in K-12 education, particularly in public education, numerous different crises, from systemic issues related to curriculum and teacher pay and burnout, as you mentioned, to debates over standardized testing, to huge politicization of certain elements of teaching and what books kids see, and so many different kind of interwoven topics. You're clearly a trailblazer in wanting to prioritize mental health on top of all these other considerations that you have to deal with leading such a large, complicated school district. From your perspective, why aren't more school districts doing similar types of interventions and mental health prioritization? Why are you one of the only superintendents right now leading such an important initiative?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for them. I can only speak for myself. And for us, the mental health focus on the students that needed need the mental health support is one thing. It's the particular group. But what about all of us? What about all the others that do need an environment that helps them flourish? So this is the way I describe it, and I'm going to be very specific about it. For us, the well-being of our students, of our teachers, with a great understanding of a principal and at the district level, is all about them understanding that this is an embedded strategy in our organization. It is not an add-on, but it's actually a piece that complements the academic support of children. At the end of the day, we always worry a lot about our less academically proficient students, students that are struggling. Those students in particular will learn and will exhibit their greatest potential if a relationship is evident in their classrooms. Otherwise, learning is not optimized. So for us, that has become really important. And I'll share another aspect of this work with you, which is really interesting. In Florida, we are now an all voucher state. So basically, students or parents can select to go to a public school, go to a charter school, or go to a private school. And as we spoke to the principals, I was telling them, right, that if you really look at how we can become better and how we don't lose students to other providers, you can forget about customer service. Customer service, which we've tried to deal with a lot, is a very surface aspect. The only way we are really going to retain our students is if you build deep, positive relationships with students, the parents, and within your teachers. Because if those relationships are in place, you can almost guarantee that parents will not need to take their students to either a charter school or a private school. We have a very innovative programs in our school district. I think we offer more innovation than any other provider in the city, but that is not enough. And so for years in our school district, we have been measuring school climate, but nothing really has been done in terms of when you get the results. So what do you do? So as we started to envision our new strategic plan, we develop strategic plans every 5 years. We did a SWOT analysis, and that is looking at our strengths, our weaknesses, our threats, and opportunities for improvements. We had over 61 focus groups, over 60,000 surveys. And what was really encouraging, and we just finished the SWOT before we begin developing the strategic plan, we got the results like 2 weeks ago. One of the positive indicators were that teachers were responding that the relationships between teachers and their leaders were positive, right? And that was a good indicator. But on the weakness side, something came up, is that the climate of some of the schools, there is inequity. Some schools had better climate than others. And so the important element is for our principals, our leaders, to be able to understand the necessity and the value of school culture, of building relationships, of the connectedness that well-being brings to the environment of work for the teachers and learning for the students. That was key. And so now, as we describe what we have always needed to do, which has been to move the academic needle, right? We always talk about moving the achievement needle. Now we are also making sure that we are moving the school culture needle as well. You cannot do one without the other. The well-being comes before the academic success or the higher academic success. And to me, it's always been about all kids have potential. How much we help them grow and exhibit that potential will always be related to a relationship with a teacher, with a counselor within the school. And that to us has been really important.
You mentioned parents, and I'm curious, how are parents reacting to this initiative? Do you feel that parents are happy and comfortable with their children's schools focusing on mental health? Do they welcome this change?
Yes, I can tell you that they do welcome I don't think it's changed, they welcome the evolution of making sure that now we've had to work through terminology because in the United States, all of a sudden, social emotional learning became a negative. So, okay, let's change the terminology. Let's not get stuck on certain things. The well-being of everyone has a much more level of acceptance. So the idea of well-being of not only the students, but the teachers, right? And how parents understand this dynamic has become really, really important. So let me just tell you something. In terms of mental health, we created for over 2 years, we have a mental health assistance number that parents can call from Monday through Sunday from 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. I was always worried about after students leave their schools, what if parents are dealing with some mental health or behavioral issues? Can they call someone? We have lines that are available for them to call. So the parents have seen the additional layers of support that we have available for our students. But the well-being aspect is one where the principals are promoting it as more and more an important component of the school day. And so it's really grounding the environment, the teaching and learning experience that students need to feel. But when you speak about students and you speak about academic performance, you can no longer speak just about them. You have to speak about the teacher as well. Just like when you're talking about how well a student is doing, we've had a big approach on the student and not the parent, but the student and the family. And so that's what's bringing the importance of the well-being together. We're extending it to the family, providing a lot of supports there, connectedness to resources in the community, the well-being of our teachers, and of course, the well-being of our students. Actually providing a host of activities that will bring more life to their learning in their school settings.
Thank you. Karen, in our final minutes, I'm curious from your perspective. I'm really happy to hear that school districts are beginning to reach out to WOHASU, to be thinking more about well-being, wanting guidance there. What's your advice to school districts that are just getting started about how to make well-being a core part of their operating approach? With everything you've seen in Miami-Dade County, where do you think is the best place to start?
Well, my first advice would be don't be afraid to be radical, right? And to to say that the importance of students' well-being is as important as academic well-being, right? Side note here on private schools in Miami, and I'm not going to say which one, but it's interesting that some of them have programs for teacher well-being, but not for students. So it's almost like putting it for this, and it's high performing private schools. So it's like you're going to detract the student on that marathon or sprint where you want them to get. Like this well-being conversation is going to detract them. So I encourage, whether it's private schools or public school districts or whatever it is, to just put a stake on the ground. I mean, it's the right thing to do, but we've also seen the evidence that they just do better. They do better in every metric that you want to measure in adult life. Happier children become, thriving adults. I want to footnote for 1 second in the trainings that we've been doing, because Richard mentioned Action for Happiness earlier. So we have one of our very, very easy interventions that we've given the principals in Miami is the Action for Happiness calendar. So the monthly calendars, they're so beautiful, they're so simple, they're evidence-based little nuggets, that you can read out every day. And so we introduced them, and some of the things that rippled out into the district, the principals started to read them in the morning announcements. And so to kind of begin the day in a positive way, right, in the morning. And then what happened by itself is that the teachers printed them, and then the principals were saying that they would see them in the classroom, and then the students would read them in the morning. So it's such a small thing. It's such a small thing to do, but if you do it habitually, the climate begins to change, and you begin to imagine starting your day on a positive note instead of like, why aren't you late? Why aren't you sitting? Why aren't you? What's not going on? Sit down, be quiet. Those things are important, but if you can set the tone with, we just need our humanity back. Say hello, to notice people, to be aware, to give them our attention. The most precious thing that we have is our time and our attention. And I think these are things that are just basic, that science says it has all of these amazing impacts, and this is why we need to put them into place. But for some reason, we have kind of, lost that in the process of becoming very advanced.
Dr. Dotres, one last question for you. If you think 5 years from now and you say, Miami-Dade County Schools, the district has been successful in improving this culture of well-being, what are the metrics you're going to pay the most attention to? What are you hoping to see in 5 years that you can kind of bring to the nation and say, this is evidence that prioritizing well-being in schools really makes a difference?
Right. The evidence base is really, really important. We just can't say things without backing it up. Like I said earlier, we've had school climate surveys, I would say forever. What you do with them and how you respond to them is really important in the results that you take. The training that our principals have gone through as a result of well-being and happiness, the science of happiness, we have to be able to measure that success on the principles themselves, and also establish baselines where we are now based on where we will be 2 and 3 years from now. But I can tell you right now, and the principals are understanding this. Like Karen says, this is basic. We all know this, but we have to be more intentional in creating the environments and the supports that are needed, but just from a simple competitive nature that we have to compete for students, retaining our students. Schools that are responsive, schools that value and prioritize well-being, resiliency, relationships, connectedness, those will be the most successful schools. As a school district, we've been rated an A 5 times in a row with a very strong accountability system in Florida. We have a graduation rate of 96% when we're dealing with over 300,000 students. So our academic achievements are there. In order to sustain them and get to some of the students that may not be achieving at the levels they are, how they feel in school will change that dynamic. And who leads or who makes sure that that environment is there is the principal. I was one. There's no one other than the principal that needs to begin to develop those structures and those connections. If the principal measures what they treasure or measures what they expect, those indicators, the metrics, will fall into place. And so I know that as a school district, we go through a very tough accreditation system. They monitor us on about 40 different indicators. And when we got the results last year, it was interesting, and this is a worldwide organization that does accreditation. They were telling us that over and over again, the word kindness was being spoken about, that we tended to be an organization where kindness was important. And so through the work with Karen and this incredible importance of well-being, we want to make sure that this grows, that this amplifies, but that we have specific strategies and approaches that all leaders can implement. Because sometimes, you have new principals coming into the roles. So we want to create a sustainable well-being approach and approach to the organization. And as we build our strategic plan, one of the goals, one of the measures, one of the objectives is going to be the well-being of our teachers, the well-being of our students, so that we can measure the well-being of an organization. So it'll be a new metric that we are introducing for the very first time in a strategic plan. And again, it has everything to do with building a positive school culture.
Thank you to our two incredible panelists. I hope everyone walks away convinced of the importance of fostering a culture of well-being in schools and how that is truly the foundation of building resilient adults and more thriving communities and countries. And I hope you were also inspired by these really tactical suggestions and approaches from WOHASU and Miami-Dade District, and think about how you can bring these to the school districts in your communities. And with that, as we gear up to conclude the Wellbeing Policy Forum and break for a lovely lunch, I wanted to turn it back to Karen for some concluding remarks.
Well, I think we've heard enough of me today. And so now just immense gratitude again to Gallup and Jim for flying over here. Thank you so much. I appreciate not only the support, but your friendship. And thank you to Riada and Ilana and everyone who made this happen at Gallup. Thank you to our wonderful speakers, flew in from Miami, Germany, and those that are local. Thank you so much. Thank you to the World Wellbeing Movement, of which I am a very grateful and honored board member. Thank you. Thank you. Sarah, and thank you, Richard, for being here, and Jan, I see you. Please sign the Como Wellbeing Manifesto. Is on our website, worldhappinesssummit.com, and spread this. Spread that this is happening. I mean, you know, what you said at the end, if that doesn't make us feel hopeful that here we have the third largest school district in the United States going to put well-being as part of their strategic initiatives and put well-being as first, I think that that's something that I would love to walk away from on this World Mental Health Day. So thank you, everyone, and I can't wait to talk to you outside in this beautiful lunch that Gallup has provided. Thank you.